Welcome to Light Sorcery. I'm Alfredo Martinez, and I have with me once again the one and only Guion Hughes.
Thank you.
Guion,
Yeah,
always good to have you on.
yeah, great to be here.
And yeah, man, and this is the first of a series called Gnostic Bible Study. And today we're going to be studying the book of Ezekiel, uh, specifically chapters 1 through 12, just kind of going over some information. And this is exciting because Guion and I both have a biblical background. We both have a Christian background, and after I got into the occult, I kind of just put the Bible aside, even though I had a great knowledge of it. But now that I've grown in my spiritual walk, um, Guion and I have decided to pick up the Bible again and look at it from a Gnostic and an occultic point of view, and kind of dig the information out. You must be pretty excited to get back into studying the Bible, Guion.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm kind of ambivalent about it in some ways, because there were some like I guess you'd say reasons that I walked away from it the last time, But I mean,
Right.
from the Gnostic background, it makes sense to me, But when even looking at the Bibles that I got, like it's a family Bible, I can feel the energy of the people that really believed and stuff like that. And I don't know, it's ambivalence comes from like things that you thought were going to be the answer to everything. It's supposed to be the best ever, like love or whatever, or the best religion, or the thing that you know is the one true God and all that stuff. And then when it comes untrue, you get ambivalent about it. So you have strong feelings both ways. Then people will tilt back to say like that to rebel against the God, like both of us probably did. I say I did at one point, and
Yeah,
say, well, I'll take the
and
other
I went
side
through
if
that phase as well. Yeah,
yeah, and I'll take the other side if this is where God was, has how He answers the prayers, So it's kind of like that. I mean, I think that's a dynamic, and that's a common dynamic of
I
abuse,
think
Yeah,
most of us go through that phase. But the thing,
yeah.
yeah, well, the thing is that there is a lot of occult symbolism in the Bible, and the way I look at it
Mhm.
now is it's not in finding new lands; it's in seeing with new eyes.
Yeah,
When you can
yeah.
see things with new eyes, you can peel back the layers and gain more knowledge and more understanding from it, especially as an occultist, because there's much more that you can dig deep in, especially when a book like the Bible. So, first of all, I just want to go ahead and kind of show off my Bible from back in the day. This
Mhm.
thing, I carried it a lot of places. I have a lot of different study notes. Like take for it's kind of fallen apart from back in the day, but here's kind of a sneak peek of it here. Um,
Mhm.
have I would write the names and write some Hebrew stuff, all my notes on the side, and it's just I don't know. It's got a lot of. I carried this around and put a lot of energy into it a lot. So I'm just kind of pulling it out. And I understand you have your Bible there, kind of a family Bible.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I had one that was like yours too, and I have it around here somewhere. But I've
Yeah.
actually like got dug up this. This is like a big giant
Okay.
one, and I didn't tear the cover off. It was like it just through the years. I mean, this is over
Yeah.
100 years old, I think.
When you go through a Bible,
Yeah,
so like I used to go
yeah.
through a Bible like every 3 months back in the day because I would
Uh huh.
study it so much it'd fall
Yeah,
apart,
yeah, yeah.
and then I gotta go get another one and I'd write all my notes again in the next one. So yeah, man, I get it.
But yeah. So this is actually like this has some beautiful illustrations. I mean, it was like kind of almost like a kid's Bible, that they would hand out,
Right.
So there's illustrations and the way that they do it too. It's kind of like it was done like maybe in the 30s or something. I mean, it's
Mm,
really is that's kind of like real American like. Are you think?
yeah,
Can you read
I can
that?
see it.
Yeah,
Mm,
yeah. So this is it's really interesting to go through this, and it even has like I don't know if you had one like a Bible where you actually put the family members' names down in.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
had Bibles like that. I had so many growing up. So many different
yeah.
kinds. So yeah, man.
And then
But
they have this bookmark, and it was interesting. They don't really do this so much anymore. They used to make custom bookmarks for funerals, so you can put them in your Bible, and then you can think about your loved ones while you're, because it's like a really
Yeah,
hard card. This is like
we
from
had
the,
those also. Yeah,
yeah, this is like from the 1966. Yeah, but
crazy.
anyway, it's really yeah, it's really amazing to feel the energy from all these years.
Well, 'cause
But yeah, yeah.
I mean, back in the day when you thought that was the truth, you would just it was the complete truth. You would it's kind of like it would consume your mind, you know, like the scripture says, on his law doth he meditate day and night and so forth. But first of all, let's go ahead and get into before we get into Ezekiel, let's speak a little bit about Gnosticism, because Gnosticism is a very broad term. It's actually a very current term. The Christians back in the day, the first, second, third, fourth century, etc., they didn't really call themselves Gnostics. There wasn't really a formalized structure until the church was officially established years later. But back then, there was just all these different writings and different books floating around, and there wasn't really a specific canon. So, would you agree with that? That Gnosticism is kind of a new term,
Yeah, when I think it's actually even been morphed more into to more kind of like a personal philosophy or individualism, because Gnostic just means, from your own wisdom, kind of, so your
right?
own ideas on it. And that's kind of like what that's kind of like, and it almost was a bad thing, when they were saying that. That's kind of like when you say like, like Gnostic just means you're thinking about God and you're putting your own God into the words and everything, which is like a conflict, like with a lot
Yeah.
of pastors who are like, well, I'm the word. No, I'm the one translating my God. So it could go in
Well,
different, and the Gnosticism is your translation, and then that's where denominations and everything. I think a lot of the Gnostic, every denomination had a different Gnostic interpreter. That's how I look at it.
it's
But I
kind
don't,
of you could agree that you could kind of say that the same thing is kind of going on today in a different way, because you have the King James Bible and the NIV, which most Protestant churches go by, and then you have the Catholic Bible, which has like 4 or 5 extra books in it, and then you
Mhm,
have the Apocrypha, which is gaining popularity.
mhm,
You have all these, and then you have the Book of Enoch, which Christians nowadays are arguing it's scripture. No, it's not scripture. And so
mhm.
it's kind of the same thing is going on right now, just in different ways. Would you agree?
Yeah, yeah. I think a big thing too is because when they discovered the Nag Hammadi library, which is a
Yeah.
bunch of these Gnostic like texts. And
Mm-hmm.
and people didn't realize that there were a lot more people that believed in this stuff, and all that stuff was burned. That's why you never hear about, like believing, that, for example, that the garden, the serpent in the Garden of Eden was actually a good God, and
Mm-hmm.
trying to help us, right? They had
Right.
a lot of
Right.
people that believed that way. They killed those people and they burned their things and just erased them and didn't even record them in history. And so that's
Right.
why at this point we just think, whatever our interpretation of the Bible in English or Old English or whatever it is, it's like that's what it is. Which that's what it is that it's like, and I don't think it was in our case, but there's a lot of people that don't really read, that much, and they don't really study, and they don't really want to put a lot into their spiritual life, as much as we have. And
There
I think it's
is
easy for Christianity to take it, not all Christianity, but for a lot of them, because if they just have you believe, you just believe this one book and this one way I'm telling you, and if you got any questions, just ask me and I'll explain it. And then that's how people are, get controlled, kind of.
I think a lot of people in the occult are not the type. Well, first of all, I want to say there's people in Christian churches that will sit there their whole lives and just listen to the sermon, listen to the pastor, listen to the priest, and they'll just listen to the teachings and never actually dig into the Bible. And then there's those occultists who they started out as Christians just digging into the Bible, and then they realize, okay, this is not all truth, so I'm going to leave this alone and go see what other spirituality is out there. And
Mhm,
then they just keep digging and digging and digging, and then they end up, on a spiritual path and practicing the occult, like we ended up. So
mhm,
I think it takes a type of studious person to really dig in and actually become an occultist. And I'm not speaking for all occultists, but for many, that's what it comes down to. So, but yeah, man, let's go ahead and jump into the book of Ezekiel. We're going to be looking at chapters 1 through 12. And we're not going to just read the whole thing or read entire chapters. We're kind of going to be bouncing around the chapters. And so let's go ahead and turn to the book of Ezekiel. We'll go to chapter 1. And let me know when you get there.
Let's see. Yeah, I actually wasn't I had it saved in a certain spot, but I actually wasn't actually trying to read it beforehand because I wanted to experience everything, the
Right.
like live between me and you and stuff. So I didn't have it saved up so
It's
much.
it's all
But I
good, man.
remember that story, and actually it's kind of interesting. When I talked about it before, was uh was Ezekiel. I really related Ezekiel to kind of like a punk rocker or like an alternative guy, like because that's what I was, because he was
Okay.
outcast and all that stuff. I mean, do you
Uh,
ever get that vibe from that, or is that you know
yeah,
what I'm talking about?
yeah, I definitely know what you're talking about. I mean, I didn't think in terms of a punk rocker, but I
Like an
do
outcast,
see,
or
yeah,
or
definitely, definitely. Yeah, I get what you mean.
yeah, and he was actually really the way he did. I don't know how much they describe it in the Bible, but I've read other accounts where they're talking about how he almost did like performance art, like he was like like the way that he did his things to try to prophesy to people. It was
Mhm.
really like a more like a. Art type thing. Let's
Well, I guess you
see.
could say that the same could be said of many prophets in the Bible. But yeah, so Isaiah,
Mm,
Jeremiah,
yeah, let me see.
Ezekiel. It's right before Daniel.
Yeah, that's what I was looking. I'm at Kings now. It's been a long time.
It's all right. Keep going.
Keep going past the Psalms. Let's see, Isaiah. Yeah, or here. It's the prophets are at the end.
Yeah,
Is that
end
where
of
I
the Old
had it?
Testament.
Jeremiah.
You're almost there.
uh, It's not even that big.
Lamentations. I think
Oh, it's
Lamentations
it's
and
oh, it's,
then
it's after
Ezekiel.
Lamentations, right? Okay, I was
Yeah,
thinking it
after
was. I was
Lamentations.
thinking it was before. Okay, there it goes. All right, I'm there.
Okay, cool. So let's jump down to uh verse 5, and we're gonna start to describe the cherub when he's seeing the cherub. So verse 5, also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of four living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man, and everyone had four faces. Everyone had four wings. Their feet were straight feet, and the sole of their feet was like the sole of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like the color of burnished brass. And they had the hands of a man under their wings, on their four sides, and they four had their faces and their wings. Their wings were joined one to another. They turned not when they went. They went, and they everyone straight forward. As for the likeness of their faces, key verse 10. They four had the face of a man, the face of a lion, and on the right side, and they four had the face of an ox. On the left side, and they four had the face of an eagle. Now, what I wanted to point out, one thing I wanted to point out is that if you take a look at the tarot cards, the world,
Hmm.
okay, you'll see these beings being represented here, and also the tarot card, the Wheel of Fortune, you'll see them there also.
Hmm.
And this is the tarot card, the world, from the French Marseille deck. It's an earlier deck from before the Rider Waite. Anyway,
Hmm.
um, these four actually represent the signs of the zodiac, four signs of the zodiac. So the man is Aquarius, the lion is Leo, the eagle is Scorpio, and of course the other one is Taurus. So Scorpio is water, Aquarius is air, Leo is fire, and then Taurus is earth. And what's actually happening here is that um you're getting a description of the zodiac. And I just want to mention, give credit where credit is due. Some of my notes I did get from gnosticacademy.org, so everybody go ahead and check them out. I will put the link below in the video description. But yeah, we're getting a description of the zodiac. And if you want to go ahead and say something about what we just read, go ahead and comment.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, completely. I mean, this is commonly what in my background we call the powers of the Sphinx. You know, because they're kind of
Right.
describing a Sphinx. You know, that's what the Sphinx. You know, with the where he's got cat claws, and I mean, so it's a chimera. It's the Sphinx. You know, and and
Hmm.
we see in Egypt they actually have the actual thing. So and then this gets translated, which is what I'm saying. Like like even when you get into witchcraft, it's like a denomination of Christianity, right? So when you get into witchcraft, they say, you ever
Oh
heard the
yeah.
saying, to will, to dare,
Hmm.
to and
Right. The
that
four
whole
powers
saying,
of the Sphinx, right? That's
yeah, the four
also,
powers
yeah.
of the Sphinx, and that's exactly where they're getting it from, but they're just they mean whoever wants. He's using a more English Gnostic, thing to create
Yeah.
witchcraft instead
Which,
of,
on the Wheel of Fortune card, you'll see the Sphinx right there
yeah.
above, right there.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think what's interesting is that also you'll notice that on the Wheel of Fortune card, there's here, let me just get it to where it'll, okay, there. Now you'll notice on the Wheel of Fortune card, the Sphinx is on top of a wheel, and you'll notice there's a wheel in a wheel. And in Ezekiel, if you read more down, it's describing a wheel within a wheel.
Uh-huh.
Um, what that actually is the wheel. First of all, you have the zodiac, okay, it up in the sky, and then you have the wheel within the wheel is, so let's say you have the orbits of the planets, okay, they're going around this way, around this way, around this way. So you have wheels within a wheel. And that's actually what is being described here on the Wheel of Fortune card.
Uh-huh.
You'll also notice there's zodiac signs on this card, and you'll notice that there's Yud He Vav He, name of God, surrounding that,
Mhm.
and you'll see a T, A, R, and an O, which it can spell, if you read it around, it'll say tarot. It can also read Torah, and then you can also it can also spell rota, which also I
Mhm.
think means wheel.
Yeah.
But yeah, this Sphinx, I
And
just
that's from
wanted
the
to mention
square of
on the,
Sador. That's from the square of Sador. Rota is from the square of Sador. That's like another witchcraft thing. Have you ever heard of that? The where they spell
I have,
Sador?
but you know what? That didn't even
Mhm.
cross my mind when I was
Yeah.
taking my notes. I like
Rotes
that
is
you brought
Sador
that up.
spelled backwards. I think Rotes is Sador spelled backwards.
Well,
Yeah.
then that's
Yes,
good
that's
insight, man. I'm glad you mentioned that. You just
yeah.
made me realize something. Right on, man. But
Yeah.
you were saying about the Sphinx.
Yeah, yeah. No, no. I mean, so the whole thing of when that just kind of like deadens down, like where I don't like when people say, you can't be Christian and be a witch, and they have some, most of the time, made up with no evidence, there was some religion before. And I mean, it's good to go back to your roots or whatever, and try to decide what it was, but there was no written language, so a lot of these cultures are either lost or fantasized, I mean,
Well,
have been changed through the years, where
a
it's like
lot
it's
of
not
this
really
stuff
what it was,
just kind of blends in when you get into the occult and you occult symbolism. A lot of this stuff just kind of blends in your studies.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
noticed is because a lot of stuff in the Bible is based on the occult. Like, take for instance what we're reading in the book of Ezekiel.
Mhm,
That's it's like we were talking about, it's describing the zodiac, and there's actually a
mhm,
deeper spiritual message behind that. It's not just Ezekiel receiving a vision and he sees the cherub, and then God tells him to go ahead and go prophesy here and there. It's much more deeper than that, and we're going to get into more different parts of the Bible in this Gnostic biblical series, and uncover the occultic hidden aspects of the Bible. But But yeah, would you agree that this is actually deep occult symbolism, this passage that we just read?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think this is based on a lot of other occult writings that we probably read, on the other side. I mean, the
Hmm.
chimeras, things like that. I mean, even the way that these are described, and all the beings, like the wheels with eyes and all that stuff. You could look at it like it could be an angel or a demon. I mean, this is pretty hideous looking. Even the Sphinx is a. If you saw a real life Sphinx, that'd be terrifying. That would you
Of
would stay. I
course. Well,
couldn't see that. Yeah,
even if you've seen a cherub, just
yeah,
appear before you, I'm sure you're not going to get bored. It's going to
yeah.
catch you off guard. I don't care who you are.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of this, and people would read this if they would think they were having visions. Those are the passages that I remember they recommend. Because it's like this is what a vision looks like per the Bible. One of the passages. And then there's other ones, of course, in Daniel and Revelations and all that stuff too.
Hmm.
And you
Yeah,
see in the
definitely.
later in the prophecies, it ties into all the other things too.
Yeah, the prophecies. Well, we'll definitely get into that. I think the next book we're going to tackle is Daniel after we finish up the book of Ezekiel. But there is a passage I wanted to. Okay, so go to Ezekiel chapter 2 and go to verse 8.
Okay. All right. Let me see. I could read. You ready?
Okay, so yeah, verse 8. But thou, son of man, hear what I say unto thee. So this is um, uh, Ezekiel's being spoken to. Be not thou rebellious like that rebellious house. Open thy mouth and eat that I give thee. When I looked, behold, there a hand was sent unto me, and lo, a roll of a book was therein. And he spread it before me, and it was written within and without, and there was written therein lamentations, mourning, and woe. Chapter 3, verse 1. Moreover, he said to me, Son of man, eat that thou findest. Eat this roll. Go speak to the house of Israel. So I opened my mouth, and he caused me to eat that roll. Okay. And he said to me, Son of man, cause thy belly to eat, and fill thy bowels with thy roll that I give thee. Then did I eat, and it was in my mouth, and honey for sweetness. Now, one parallel that I want to bring up here, one thing that came to mind when reading that,
Mm-hmm.
when you go into ritual and you sit down to do a spell, you go into ritual and you don't just go into it and just kind of wing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to kind of premeditate what you're going to do, and especially your incantations. So you don't just what I this is now based on my experience. It's you get a better effect if you um, think of your incantation, you meditate on that incantation, and you just kind of you memorize it, you digest it. Um, Whatever your intent is based on that incantation, you of course made you symbolically you eat it, you digest it, you think about it,
Mm-hmm.
and you let it permeate your whole being before you actually go in and you speak it. That way it
Mm-hmm.
has more of an effect. The spell has more of an effect. And what do you think about that statement?
Yeah, well, I mean, and you look at even the way the Christians do this. That I mean, it's kind of a spell that they do, right? Is and we remember this, right? And I just mentioned it. Is you would actually learn, you'd have a book, or the pastor would put out a pamphlet and said, like, if you're depressed, read these certain sections, right? If you're
Yeah.
that, so the intention, you already had the intent. You're the one asking for help, or you're the one looking up and saying, I'm depressed, or I'm having marital problems, or whatever the problem is. So it's almost like that's a way,
Mhm.
that's their spell. It's a you're asking, they're telling you, all you got to do is believe it. That's it, right? And so the intention
It
is
kind
like
of
that's kind
is,
of a
yeah.
spell. I mean, that's it. I mean, that's if even if you have to suspend disbelief or whatever. It's like,
Hmm.
but I mean, that only works so far. But and that's why I think it's like I said, it's everybody has their own Gnostic interpretation of every book, especially the
Yeah,
Bible.
and again, like we were saying, Gnosticism, it's everyone did have their own way of interpreting scripture. Everyone had their own, you quote unquote, canon of what books they were reading. There wasn't really an establishment. So Yeah, and what's interesting about this is there is no right or wrong answer. You can kind of go into it and interpret it. You know, if you get some kind of gnosis that someone else didn't get, well, then more power to you, man.
Uh-huh.
You can get creative with it, and you can have different layers of understanding, and you can actually learn a lot about the occult and apply it to your magical practice by looking at the Bible this way, and not just the way you were taught in Sunday school or on Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to bring up something else here. I believe it was Daniel. Okay, so let's jump over to chapter 7, Ezekiel chapter 7, and let's go to verse 5. Let me know when you get there.
All right. All right. Seven
Actually,
five.
hold on. Let me make sure I'm on the right spot here. Okay, sorry, I got the wrong here. Anyways, where he's um I'm sorry. My notes kind of got mixed up there. Anyway, um I'm just gonna read Daniel 12:7 right now. I'm just gonna jump over there, so just bear with me here. It's the next book over. So let me just
Mm-hmm.
read this verse and then I'll continue the point I was trying to make here. Okay, so 12:7, Daniel 12:7. So now it says, and I heard the man clothed with linen. Now you'll notice that in Ezekiel chapter 1, um, he's describing and speaking to a man clothed with linen. You'll notice
Mm-hmm.
in the early chapters of Ezekiel.
Yeah, yeah.
Says, I heard the man clothed with linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever that it shall be for a time, times, and time and a half. Anyway, what I wanted to point out is he describes the man clothed in linen and held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven. Now, if you take a look at the constellation of Orion, in the constellation of Orion, you have in the illustration there that people make, a man clothed with
Mm-hmm.
linen. He's got his right hand and his left hand up. Now, um, that's a description of the constellation of Orion. And then he goes on to later on describe um, standing on the waters of the river. If you on the in the book of Ezekiel. So now underneath Orion, you'll find the constellation of Eridanus, which kind of looks like a river going down.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can, as you read on, it talks about the coals, hot coals. Uh, God tells Ezekiel, take these hot coals and spread them out. Now, if you take a look around that area of the constellation, um, there's the eye of Taurus. You'll see the constellation of Taurus. There's the eye of Taurus, which has sort of a red hue to it. And
Uh-huh.
then there's another constellation right by it that has another red hue. I can't remember the name of it. I can't remember the name of the constellation. I think it's Betelgeuse. So Taurus and Betelgeuse. That's
I
describing the
know that.
coals of fire in Ezekiel.
Isn't that how they say Beetlejuice? Is that the
Yeah,
Beetlejuice one? Yeah, Beetlejuice.
yeah.
Yeah,
Some people call it Beetlejuice.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Because that's what they got it for the movie.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah. So anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that you have this in Ezekiel as God is instructing Ezekiel to, go out and prophesy, and he's describing the constellation of Orion and these different constellations. But then, so that's where the zodiac comes in, and then the wheel within the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So and then eventually you realize that these constellations, you have Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, Taurus. So I see that as kind of a metaphor for um, absorbing the elements. As a
Hmm.
magician, as you learn the different elements, you
Hmm.
absorb them into you, and it kind of renews you. So it's kind of like this is kind of like instructing the magician to learn the elements, let them change you for the better, and then as
Uh-huh.
you're
Yeah.
transformed into something new. So this is
Yeah.
kind of like a spiritual revival kind of going on.
Hmm.
What do you think about all this information?
Yeah, I mean, and there's a lot of this stuff is still, when people go through like official training to become a priest and stuff, it's a lot more occulty
Yeah.
than people would think, and based on a lot of this kind of stuff,
Mm.
a lot of people would think you just have to memorize the whole Bible and all that, but no, they get it. There is things that get into that, and then it's even more like in the, outside of Catholicism, where there's not even so much structure, where anybody that, like that staggers out of prison can become a preacher, I mean, so they decide this or that or the other, and that's the thing about the Bible or any book, in my opinion, right? As a chaos magician, uh, it can mean anything, especially if you're using it for bibliomancy. If you're turning to a thing, you could go, you could use like, People Magazine, right? You could use it, I mean, it could mean anything, right?
Right.
I mean, you could point to it and it's your interpretation. That's how the Bible is anyway. I mean, people, they do tell you to read it from front to back, which is a thing I recommend. I've done before, to just read the whole thing. But most people are told to go here, go there, and during sermons and stuff, go on this page and go in there, and do all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And that's like a, I don't know. I mean, in some ways, I think that kind of hinders personal Gnosticism. I mean, that's when the Christian churches do it more. You know
Well,
what I
I
mean?
think it can be a stepping stone to personal gnosis. As people become familiar with flipping around,
Hmm.
they end up, if they have the desire to do that on their own, then they'll start to realize different truths the more they dig. Um, I think that the mindset of studying the Bible as a Christian is kind of a precursor to um, how an occultist eventually digs for information through different resources. And I just wanted to point out that the zodiac signs, uh, Aquarius is to know. Then you have to will, Taurus, and then you have to dare, Leo, and then you have to keep silent, Scorpio. So
Hmm.
all these, there's so much occult symbolism, that's why it's exciting looking into this. Um, so yeah, man, that's just some stuff that I wanted to kind of throw out there on Ezekiel. Um, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, you
As
know what? I
far
wanted
as
to go
what I
back to
wanted.
the one. I mean, you said you mixed up your notes, but I think the passage you put out is like one of those that Samuel Jackson reads in that what's the movie called? Where he's with the John Travolta.
Oh,
You
Pulp
know,
Fiction.
Pulp
Yeah,
Fiction. Very, I think
yeah.
the one you put by mistake. So listen to this. All right. So chapter 7, verse 5. Thus saith the Lord God, an only evil, behold, is come. An end is come. The end is come. It watcheth for thee. Behold, it is come. The morning is come unto thee, O thou that dwellest in the land. The time is come. The day of trouble is near, and not the sounding again of the mountains. That's
Yeah,
pretty powerful
it's
stuff.
been
I mean,
it
But
is it
that's
is
not
very
the.
powerful stuff.
I think that is Ezekiel, though, right? The one that's not the one he
I
did,
You
but
know
it's kind
what?
of like
I haven't seen
mm,
Pulp Fiction in a long time. I know there's a
yeah,
part where I remember him
yeah,
stating a Bible verse. I can't remember if that's exact, but you're
yeah.
probably right.
And he
That's the
even
one
like
you mentioned.
it's more than just stating it. He actually decodes it, because he's saying like he's the shepherd and this, it's like I don't know if it's a. We'll have to look it up for next time because
Yeah.
he actually deciphers the whole thing. I'll find it on YouTube. He actually
Uh.
says like I'm the shepherd, and my gun is a cane, all something like that. He's trying to, he's trying to
Right.
like
I'm gonna have to
decipher.
I'm gonna have to watch that again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what it made me think of. But hey, great doing this. I hope we do more. And it's
Yeah,
weird
man,
going back
it's
to it for me, but I mean, I think for both of us, it's weird to go back to it to a certain degree. It's almost like something
it
we used
is.
to know, and then
It is because I remember when I first put the Bible down and I started reading other spiritual stuff. I remember I started getting into the Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey, and then
mm,
I was like, oh, to hell with this, and I just kind of like had a rebellious attitude and like, well, I'm never going to read that again. And throughout
mm,
the years, as I've gone through this spiritual transformation and grown in my spiritual walk, I'm like, you know what? I can learn more about my magical practice by getting back into this now that
mm,
I have multiple layers of understanding and I can see more things. So
yeah,
it is kind of it's a little odd getting back into it, but at the same time it's exciting knowing that I can enhance my spiritual practices by looking at this and getting back into it.
hmm,
So,
yeah,
but yeah, man, thank you for your time, Guion. Thank
mm,
you for coming on and giving your insights. And everyone, make sure you check out Light Sorcery also on Instagram. Make sure you check out Guion's social media links. All those links will be below in the video description. And everyone who's watching, make sure you like and subscribe to Light Sorcery.